everyone. I know that I am a counselor and this is not a chef show. However, I am a foodie. I like to eat and cook and bake, and I really was thinking about, just as the year starts turning toward fall and it's November and things are gearing up toward the holidays, I was just thinking a lot about how a lot of people struggle with food insecurity. And so I thought maybe I would do a couple of videos on here about just basic ways that you can fix food that still feels celebratory, but it can actually be really nice on your budget, but it doesn't have to taste terrible for you to be easy on your budget. So a great go-to of mine is my 3-bean chili. And before you knock it, even if you're not a bean person, I love this chili, number one, because it's so versatile. Number two, I'm gonna show you, you put lots of spices in it. And so that's what makes this soup, is like, don't make it bland. put spices in it, and put the ones that you and your family like. So it's very flexible. You can do, if you do the full batch, I'm only doing a half batch today, but if you do the full batch, you would do 2 cans of 3 different kinds of beans. So usually I would do 2 cans of black beans, 2 cans of pinto beans, and you can do the ranch style pinto beans if you want, and 2 cans of kidney beans. Today I'm doing a little bit different. If you use dried beans, you can soak them the night before, and so the 6 cans, so the 2 cans and 2 cans, the 6 cans of beans would be equivalent to 2 pounds or 4 cups of beans total. So today I'm doing a half batch, so I only had 2 cups of beans, so I did 2/3, and you can write this down, you pause it and write it down, 2/3 a cup of the dried beans. So this is what they've looked like after I've soaked them for 8 hours. I rinsed them, drained them in the colander and rinsed them, and I'm about to add them, but first I have used the skillet. So I just soaked the beans in the skillet, like in the whatever pot you're going to use, either a large soup pot, which I do when I do the entire batch, or the half batch. You can just cover it with 2 inches of water. So usually I just fill up the whole saucepan. Cover it. It sits either overnight or for 8 hours with the beans, and then you drain the beans, and then I will, let me move this. I put some a little bit of oil in the skillet, and am sauteing some chopped onions. I chop these ahead of time and put them in the freezer, so all I have to do is just add them. So I'm only doing about 1/4 of an onion chopped, but if you do because I'm doing a half batch, but if you do the full batch, if you want to make a huge pot of chili, and you can always make cornbread with it, just do half an onion diced. And so I will saute these until they are translucent. And since they're frozen, I gotta turn up the heat a little bit so that they'll saute well. All right, and then once your onions are sauteed, you can add all of your ingredients. You're just gonna add it all together all at once. Beans, tomatoes, and spices, and then stir it up. You're gonna bring everything to a boil. I'll show you that in a second. Bring everything to a boil and then simmer, which means just little bubbles, on low or medium low for at least an hour. The longer the better. So usually I'll bring it to a boil and then turn it to low and just let it sit for several hours or all afternoon until I'm ready to eat dinner. But I'm going to go ahead and add the beans. Aren't they pretty? And then if you are doing the full can or the full recipe, you'll do 2 small cans or 1 large can of Rotel, and then 1 large can of stewed chopped tomatoes. I am just doing the 1 can of tomatoes here because I'm only doing the half recipe, but you could always add a small can of green chilies if you want to do that. And then before I add the spices, I'm going to go ahead and add the broth. So you can use veggie broth from the store. I usually end up just covering it with water. Today I'm actually using veggie broth from the beans that I cooked last week. I freeze the juice from when I cook beans. And so this is basically bean broth. So it is a little bit darker than it would be with, a clear veggie broth. But I consider it my veggie broth. And you just pour it until, you can tell some of that's still frozen, so can't use all of it. But you will just do it to cover. So that's just about perfect. You can always add more if you like, but this is a pretty good balance to make it pretty soupy. And then I'm going to add my spices. So the cool thing about the spices is it's pretty much just whatever you want to put in there. And I usually add twice as much as I think that I will need because, again, I don't want bland soup. So you can do garlic powder. I have on the recipe to do 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. I usually do it by eye. I don't even measure. So if you are a person who cooks without measuring, this is for you. I'm usually not a person who cooks without measuring, but this recipe I've made so many times that I no longer measure the spices. I have a blend of salt that is sea salt plus some herbs. So I'm gonna add a pinch of that, generous pinch. It is sassy salt from Rosebud's Natural Seasonings. I will put a link in the description if you would like to grab some sassy salt. If not, just you can use your regular salt or Himalayan sea salt. And then you can add smoked paprika, you can add dill, you can add basil and oregano. That's the smoked paprika. It's quite a bit, but it's gonna taste good. Crushed red pepper. I'm gonna add a little crushed red pepper. I don't put much just because I don't like it super spicy. I like my herbs more than my mouth on fire spices. And then a couple of my go-to favorites, especially for this soup, is Montreal steak seasoning. I just generously spread. Again, the more spices you put, the better it will be. You don't want bland soup. Beans do not have to be bland. And then another favorite is everything bagel seasoning. It has, so if you don't have any of these or don't want to go to the store and buy them, it's just a blend of spices. So the Montreal steak seasoning has some pepper and some garlic and, let's see. Okay, here's what the Montreal steak seasoning looks like, but it just includes coarse salt, spices, black pepper, red pepper, garlic, onion, and paprika. And so the everything bagel seasoning has sesame seeds, salt, dehydrated garlic, dehydrated onion, black sesame seeds, and poppy seeds. So if you have a sesame allergy, you may not want to use the bagel seasoning, but that doesn't mean you can't add stuff. You can add minced onion. Since I have the onion chopped in there, I'm not going to add minced onion today, but that's also a good go-to. If you want to add, red pepper, chili pepper, anything like that, you can do that. And then you just stir it all together. And then I'm going to turn the heat up. I should have had the heat turned up already, but I forgot. It was still on medium. So you just stir everything really well together, and you can always season to taste. So when your soup is done and some of the flavors have kind of melded together, if you still need to add some more spices or something, you can definitely do that. I just know that it always makes better soup to just be generous with the spices at the beginning. Maybe not the salt, it could be too salty, but pretty much everything else, the garlic and the herbs, usually you can't have too much of that. So you're gonna just bring this to a boil, which means just the rolling bubbles, and then you'll turn it down to where it's just bubbling just a little bit, and just keep it at that simmer. You can put a lid on it and leave it if you want. Usually it's low or medium low. Sometimes you can put it at a 2 or 3, and then just let it simmer at least for an hour. So minimum of an hour. Let's see. So let it simmer minimum of an hour. The more that the spices and the flavors all meld together, the better this soup is. But I'm gonna once I put mine to a boil, mine's gonna actually stay on low simmer all afternoon until evening time. And so the cool thing about this is it does make a lot. So if you have a big family, that's awesome. If you don't, that's okay too, because once it cools, you can divvy it up and put it in different containers. Make sure they're freezer safe, and just freeze, and then you can have soup next week or something like that. And so you could freeze soup, and then put one in your fridge for leftovers and 1 or 2 in your freezer. That's what I usually do with soups. I just make the entire batch, and then I will just divvy it up into about 4 to, I think there's 6 cup containers with lids, and so that is my go-to for soup. If you use dried beans instead of the canned beans, you can get 1 pound of dried beans, which is 4 cups of beans. You can get it, it's 2 cups of beans. 2 cups of beans, 1 pound, is the same price as 1 can of beans. So if you're willing to let it soak and, just soak it the night before and then go to sleep and then do the beans in the morning, you can save money that way. If not, canned beans are still very inexpensive, and just adding, if you get the canned tomatoes or even the tomatoes from the produce, if you want to chop up your own tomatoes, but if you just want to do cans and then dump, and then just adding your spices, or find a spice blend like the Montreal steak seasoning, just grab that one and put it in there. That is an easy way to feed a crowd. Serve them with tortillas or chips or rice or cornbread, and you've got a very nourishing, yummy meal. Again, no bland beans around here, but that is easy on your budget. And so I hope that's helpful. If y'all like this, comment below. I'll do some more. But that was just really on my heart, just working with people, and also just being a person who cooks and likes food. I thought that might be something helpful for you during this holiday season. So let me know if you make this recipe. Send me a picture, put it in the comments, and I will talk to you soon.